Hey everyone, Top 10 Creative Builds for Bloodborne. Welcome back to the series. I'm really happy with how the last episode went with the return to Yharnam. I just think Bloodborne is so exciting and mysterious in a way the other Souls games aren't necessarily. Today we'll be looking at builds for PvP, but specifically setups with a nice twist, things you don't come across too often. Now saying that, Bloodborne on paper has less weapons and spells compared to the Souls games, but that is deceiving because each weapon counts for 2 or 3 to be honest. They're trick weapons in Bloodborne which can be transformed, plus you have the addition of firearms held in the left hand. So I think a lot of current players would agree that it's common to see a lot of pure skill builds using the Saw Spears or Beast Hunter Scythe. There's always been quite a few bloodtinge builds running around as well, so hopefully now we can check out some more interesting variations sent in from some of you. Starting off at number 10 is Starlazout Online, presenting a character with a pretty even distribution of stats. Normally not recommended for PvP, you normally want to specialise rather than be a jack of all trades, but in this case he's going for a strong Bloodborne theme. So instead of being ultra efficient, he's created a Plague Doctor. So with high vitality and endurance, he's wearing the beak mask, the old hunter garb, the choir gloves, which look almost surgical, and the hunter trousers, and they have long boots as well, so all of his body is covered. Main weapon used then is of course the church pick, because it was used by the healing church hunters to hunt beasts, so it kind of fits in with the lore of the game. The flame sprayer is used in the left hand for the same purpose, it burns away the beast plague, and the executioner's glove is a hunter's tool that summons 3 vengeful spirits, which in this case we imagine them as spirits of the beasts he's killed. It's also just great coincidence that the opponent he's facing now in PvP is using the beast claws and raw. So great immersion. So this is at number 10 because it's a creative idea, the weapon is awesome, the church pick is actually unbelievably good, so give it a try if you haven't. It counts as righteous and serrated, so in PvE it's pretty broken against a lot of enemies, and it's clearly somewhat viable for PvP as well. The Plague Doctor idea works and fits perfectly in Bloodborne, as I said. I do think the stats could be done a lot more efficiently, but I could see it's a work in progress. Your weapons weren't fully upgraded and so on, but that's fine. The core idea is a good one, and most importantly, it looked fun. Astrich Thighs Souls has created a strange build for sure. It's an arcane build, but using the Beast Cutter, so a heavy weapon that deals blunt damage and has a much longer range than you might expect. It's kind of like a strength version of the Threaded Cane. Now this player has low strength, but extremely high arcane, 80 arcane. Keep in mind stats are affected by diminishing returns after 25, and they soft cap at 50, so this is a bold choice. Of course, for this to work, he's using elemental blood gems to make sure his Beast Cutter scales with arcane rather than physical damage. An advantage with doing this is that you can then add in spells like Augur of Ebrietas and Accursed Brew, which really complements this build, seeing as the Beast Cutter is so draining on his stamina. Quick thing I wanted to point out with this build, it might help some people. In his initial demonstration, we notice he has plus 10 Lost Parasite as a secondary weapon, but doesn't often use it. Thing to realise is he's stacked that with pulsing blood gemstones, and what they do is passively recover your health every 3 seconds, and they stack. So this is more commonly used in PvE, just playing through the game, where people will swap to a backup like this when they aren't in danger to regain health for free. It saves blood vials, which is obviously great because, let's be honest, no one likes farming for those. That's pretty much it for this build. Nice to see an arcane build being very successful using a very brutal, but paradoxically a very graceful weapon choice as well. Here we have Drisful, known as Not You on YouTube, and he popularised an arcane / bloodtinge hybrid build back in July 2016 and was one of the first players to craft something like this. These elements completely contrast each other, even within the lore of the game. We can look to the bloodtinge of Canehurst versus the arcane executioners. There's always been a conflict there. This setup features 40 vitality, probably the lowest HP you should have for PvP. 16 strength just so we can use the Holy Moonlight Sword, and 14 skill for the Chikage. So they're just minimum requirements. For actual damage, we have 46 Arcane, so that Accursed Brew, Black Sky Eye, and Executioner Glove spells all hit hard, and the same goes for Bloodtinge, which is the other half of this build. Bloodtinge for the Chikage and Evelyn. Evelyn is the pistol he's using offhand, which has the highest Bloodtinge scaling of all the firearms. So the pros of using something like this is you get very high burst damage. With the Chikage and the Holy Moonlight Sword, it really spreads out your options and makes you unpredictable. The cons involve less overall AR damage compared to just going pure Bloodtinge, or pure Arcane for that matter. You get really bad visceral attacks as well, because visceral attacks scale with your skill level, and overall for this I think the health is just quite low, which is particularly worse in Bloodborne of course, because invaders have a 30% less HP penalty. However, the foundations for this build are very solid, and there's lots of variations that have been made of it, one of which we'll be seeing a bit later on. Number 7. Beast build. To turn into a beast in Bloodborne, you need the Beast's Embrace Oath rune that was added with the Old Hunters DLC. Equip the Beast Claws as well, and you become a fully fledged werewolf killing machine. You get additional attacks and a feral moveset. When in this form, using the claws, you gain permanent beasthood meter, and as the meter fills, your attack damage increases at the cost of your defense, so it encourages a very aggressive playstyle. Of course, with this build, he's wearing Brador's set along with the Ashen Hunter garb, very common choice since they scale the best with beasthood. I would definitely say if you're the type to rush opponents down with fearsome combos and be very agile, this is the build for you. We've got a submission from someone who calls himself Micolash, host of Bad Boss Design, which is funny. I have seen this a lot. The Micolash boss fight is a bit of a meme. Typically, you end up chasing this crazy guy with his head stuck in a cage around until he one-shots you with a Cool Beyond spell. He's made a perfect version of this boss, made easier now that NPC facial features have been data mined, so he can nail the look perfectly and battle invaders in the Murgo's Loft area. Keeping in character, he can only use weak fist attacks, Augur of Ebrietas, and the big finisher, a Cool Beyond. Damnation is showcasing his 120 Arcane and Bloodtinge build. This is a build type made popular from another player called Drizzful, who was showcased earlier at number 8. But it's an evolution, I think. Once again, Arcane and Bloodtinge is an interesting stat mix most players would not expect to play against. The typical Bloodtinge builds will just spam with a Chikage, which is this katana that he's using, and it directly scales with Bloodtinge when it's transformed. This setup uses the scythe weapon, which propels you towards and away from your opponent. While he's dancing around with that, he'll wait for an opportunity to whip out the brutal Chikage slash, while also having the Evelyn for viscerals. He often starts off the fight with Executioner Gloves, which is a great idea because it instantly throws your opponent off guard completely. It makes it harder to tell what kind of build you're running. I like this build a little bit more than the previous version because it bumps up vitality to 47 while still managing a 45-45 split for Arcane and Bloodtinge at level 120. I think that's a sacrifice worth making personally, and this way he still has access to all spells and a lot of elementally converted trick weapons. One thing to notice, of course, is visceral attack damage is really bad with this build. He has a very low skill stat, so he'll either simply unzip with a Chikage or burrito them, which is to say he phantom viscerals by slipping in an extra R1 before taking the final visceral. Great build, I love the surprise factor, and it has access to a lot of weapons and variety to stay interesting. Lord Sitsamas has worked for hundreds of hours to make this incredible poison toxin build, and I actually mean that. You'll have heard of blood gems if you've played Bloodborne, of course. They're an upgrade item for your weapons that can be found as drops from chalice dungeons. and there's different categories of gems, and the gems have something like 30 different varying effects they can have, and you can have more than one gem per weapon. And the truth is, this game really rewards players who spend hundreds of hours farming chalice dungeons, searching for these rare blood gems, and in turn, it's created a huge sub-community of chalice dungeon experts, like the Tomb Prospectors, who share their discoveries and share their dungeons and glyphs with each other. This poison build uses flat arcane gems on the wheel, with poison additions, as well as poison gems with flat physical attack additions. These combine with a 40 strength, 40 arcane character to give a max of 519 AR, which is not bad. The two poisonous gems you'll need for this are ones with murky and dirty primary effects. Murky gives a slow poison effect, and dirty is rapid poison. So he estimated he had about 500 farming run attempts per gem in order to find the ones he needed. So he's got gems that are going to make people jealous. But why the Logarius wheel weapon? Well, poison is very unique, as it's the only form of status in Bloodborne that can be inflicted on an opponent by connecting any part of your body to them the second your rolling animation begins. Meaning on a weapon with high rapid poison, an opponent with low health will be caught off guard as you kill them just by rolling at them. Ghost hits as well, hits that activate a given weapon's damage type animation but don't inflict damage, also inflict poison on an opponent. With the abundance of spammable weapons in this game, builds can combine the damage of both poison types. So what he does is he inflicts slow poison at the start of the match, which will deal around 500 damage over 40 seconds. So over the course of the fight, your opponent's taking huge damage, slowly. Then he switches back to a rapid poison weapon, which will remove another 15% of his opponent's health. Not many people will carry antidotes with them, and even if they do, it just takes another couple of hits to reapply the toxins. Awesome build, definitely has the advantage of being unusual, so people will have a harder time countering. I do have blood gem jealousy though. Bloodborne Clips has a very specific build purpose. Just take a look at that embarrassing health bar.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
Anyway, 26 vitality is very low, but it's for a reason. He can buff the Logarius wheel once without losing any health, because the drain stops once 0.1% of your total health is less than 1. Speaking of Arcane, that's what this build is. Notice 99. In these clips, we see the mighty Cos Parasite being used very effectively, and you can see once again this guy has farmed some exceptional gems. He said he got the best elemental and cold abyssal gems for all the arcane weapons, so that must have taken forever. I believe he has flat arcane gems for the Cos Parasite, and with that, the transformed special attack does silly damage. The other weapon he uses a lot is the Boom Hammer. The R2 fire smash attack is great, especially when stacked with oil urns, another item that's very underappreciated. They're thrown and they coat enemies in oil, and this makes your next fire-based attack do about double damage. Speaking of fire, he has all the Molotov cocktail variations too, and those scale with Arcane, which is a great little bonus to this build. I haven't mentioned his appearance, and it's quite an appearance to mention, isn't it? So he's equipped the Milkweed rune from the Old Hunters DLC, which transforms him into this pale broccoli, Celestial Lumenwood, which gives him unique dodge animations and enhances the moveset of the Cos Parasite weapon. It also has some extra tentacle attacks, and most importantly, the devastating Arcane AoE attack. This setup is made to look even better with his fashion choice. He's got the Madman garb, which have the snakes draped around the shoulders, and then the Maria set for blood resistance to counter all those bloodtinge builds out there. This for me is a perfect representation of what a magical arcane build should look like in Bloodborne. Very celestial, creepy, Lovecraftian, with tons of additional spells and consumables to complement the close quarter tentacle action. Submission from Comrade. We've got a serious glass cannon build with a twist, and I actually mean cannon. Glass cannon. Yeah, you get it. Points have only been put into strength and bloodtinge. Everything else is base, and that HP bar is actually painful to look at. I'm gonna have to look at something else.
Yikes.
He has 2 characters, blood level 43 and 64 for this. So low level and mid level invasions are the aim here. And yeah, it's fantastic, it works perfectly. In some cases the host doesn't even know what hit them. There's just a faraway explosion in the distance and then suddenly a character falls over and dies. This cannot have been an easy build to make though, by any means. Let's think about it. He had to beat everything in the game, including the DLC, up to Ludwig, all at base health and endurance. Which is realistically, that's a tough challenge run by itself. The best clip of all comes when he hides himself with blue elixir and watches the bridge from the cliff edge. This is the furthest possible range you can hope to reach with the cannon. So, I love this. After that kill, he managed to speak with the host, and the host was a good sport about it and ended up sending him the footage of his perspective with the PS4 built-in capture. Alright, number 1 is from Gene Rishk, and in some ways it's a simple concept, but we're looking at creative and unique builds, and the way this one was made is both of those things to the extreme. Soulsborne players love item descriptions, don't we? So if I were to tell you every single item, weapon and piece of clothing are linked to their item descriptions, I wonder if you could figure out what theme links them. Every single equipment piece has something about madness in their name or description. This means he has no firearm because he couldn't find one that had the madness theme related to it. But otherwise we have words like madman, mad, mania, and madness, all used as descriptions in the things he's using. What I love about this is using this method to create a build centered around madness, he actually ends up making something that looks completely mad. I mean, look at that enlarged head, who wears that? This armor piece is actually unique. If you listen carefully in quiet areas, you can hear a steady drip drop of water echoing in your head. According to the description, it's actually a deformed head of a patient from the cathedral, which is pretty disgusting. I mean, he's just stuck his head into another deformed head. The amygdalin arm is kind of like a club that transforms into a scythe. It scales with strength, hence his 50 strength points investment. As a club, it stun locks really well, but the transformed mode has incredibly deceptive long range, so actually this weapon is quite versatile. One of the most versatile strength weapons for sure. But as for the mad aspect, this weapon is terrifying and barbaric, especially lore-wise. It is an actual limb, or arm, from an amygdala Great One. The Great Ones being the gods of Bloodborne, and lore-wise, the Healing Church are trying to harness their power. Hilariously, here we are running around smacking people with one of their arms. Overall, I would never have thought to limit my setup through linking item description themes, but it's clearly worked well here. Not only is this build viable, but the build appearance actually reflects the madness criteria it was built around. It looks unique, and it's creative, and it was designed that way too, so great job with this madman character. Thanks for watching everyone. Next episode will be top 10 ranged kills for Bloodborne. You know, we have the Rosemarina spray, pistols, rifles, gatling guns, cannons, pebbles. Just saying. We have arcane spells too, and consumable items and all that type of stuff. Information on how to submit for the next one is in the description, so take a look and please send me your clips. I'd love to see them. I had a great time in Cuba, by the way, came back a few days ago. I announced I was taking a family holiday in an update video, which I've taken down now. Cuba was really interesting. It has a crazy history, very violent past, and of course all the old American classic cars were fun to see. It's weird, it was very strange going to one of the last communist countries. It has a sort of hybrid communist system. It's kind of strange. They have 2 currencies, one for locals, one for tourists. Anyway, thanks to everyone who submitted clips for this one. I appreciate you all, hope you had fun with it, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you soon.